Hello and thanks for joining me. My name is Julie and this is Stamp with Julie Baum. We are going to make this really clever and beautiful card here in just a moment. Before we get started, I want to mention that today is June 1st. I am showing a project that we made at the May Stamp Club, which was just several days ago. And I wanted to also point out a couple of things. I'd like to bring this to your attention in case you don't have time at the end of the video to find all the information. So you can take a quick screenshot of this if it's helpful. Otherwise, let me quickly explain. Below this video, you'll see a box and there's a little bit of writing and some description, but you'll see two words that say show more. If you click on show more, it will open up that box and it will show you all the great information that I have prepared for you, including shopping links, the materials used, the dimensions used, and so forth. Also, if you enjoyed today's video, I invite you to go to my online store to order your products. And if you're going to do that between now and June 15th, kindly use the current host code, which is shown here. I will regularly update my host codes. You can always place an order at my online store, whether you have a current code or not. But often, depending on the project and the time of the month, it's super helpful if you do use a current host code. There's other information that you'll see in that drop-down box, including all the different ways to connect with me, which can be found at this link, as well as my website and blog, which is Stamp with Julie Baum. So there is so much for me to show you on today's card, so much. And so we're going to take it bite by bite. This was not a hard card to make, but it does have a lot of steps. So the first thing that I'm going to show you how to do is how to prepare this little piece, which is your little word part that is going to get attached in this example onto our acetate sheet here so that it kind of looks like it's floating. So let's talk about this piece here. Then I'm going to tell you all of the dimensions and everything else you need to make the card. So for that little part, you're actually going to need some white cardstock, and then I also used some bubble bath cardstock, which is here. And I prepared my white cardstock by using some sticker sheet, adhesive sheets. All right. Now, adhesive sheets are available in the new annual catalog. They are here on page 138. They are item number 6, in case you've never had to find these before and in case you have not used them. Adhesive sheets. Now, they come in a 6 by 12 inch piece of paper. This sheet has already been cut down a little bit, so you can see it is not quite 6 inches wide and it's also not 12 inches long. But this is what a piece of it will look like. And just to tell you briefly how you would do this is you would take your plain white cardstock, whatever size. I mean, you could even do a large sheet like this. Let's just use this for our example. And you peel the backing off of the sticker sheet, and then you actually apply this sticky sheet to your plain piece of cardstock. So in this instance, I could apply this whole thing to a big piece of cardstock. All right, now then, hold that thought. Once you have the sticker sheet or the adhesive sheet stuck to your plain cardstock, and by the way, it doesn't have to be just white cardstock. Any cardstock that you want to attach your adhesive sheet to, you can. In this instance, we used white. So now that I have that, I cut this into user-friendly sizes. So this is basic white cardstock that I've already attached my adhesive sheet to. Then I cut it down into these smaller pieces. Hopefully that makes sense and you're following. Then what we did at Stamp Club in class is we went ahead and cut out the word sending from this adorable die out of that cardstock on top of that was already created with the adhesive sheet. So that's what this is. This is another one of these. All right. So this is white cardstock and it does have the adhesive sheet on the back. You can see it's a little bit of a shiny backing. Then carefully taking the words out like so, I can discard this. Now I'm going to gently pop the word sending out of my die, but one thing to notice is you want to make sure that you keep the dot of the I. You've got the word sending here, and so on the letter I there's a dot. We want to make sure that we keep that dot. I'm going to put it here so it will stand out, because we're going to need that dot when it comes to attaching to our project. All right, there is my dot. All right, do you see why I'm pointing this out before we even get started? Some of these little critical things. All right, now this can easily come out of the die like so. All right, here is the piece I'm going to use. I can get rid of these extra little parts like so. And remember that I, it's right there. We're going to keep it. Okay, now sending, oh, there's one more. Sending is ready to be used. Now, let me tell you why I did it this way. To attach this to the next piece, I'm able to remove the backing from this entire thing, and basically what I made is one giant sticker. So now this word sending is going to be a sticker that I can attach easily. Now, if you don't want to do all that, if you're super eager to try this card and you haven't bought adhesive sheets yet, then just cut this out of white cardstock. But the challenge is going to be that you're going to need to put your little tiny, tiny, tiny dots of liquid glue onto this scripty die cut that you have. And I think that that is kind of challenging. It's a little bit of a pain in the neck. So by doing it this way, I have a sticker. It's going to be much easier. So let's finish this part and then we will go back to the beginning of the card. Now, on my piece of bubble bath cardstock, I used this die, which is the shadow of the word sending. Okay, so you can see that, ran that through my die cutting machine, and there you go. There's the shadow of sending. All right, so now I can put this all together and I have my focal image of my word. So I'm going to attach the words to the shadow, and I can use my take your pick tool. I just need to get that little backing started. It's not hard. All right, you see I kind of got that started. Now I can remove the backing from the whole thing. I'm taking a little care just so I don't tear it, but it's not hard to do. There we go. That's the backing. That's trash. This is now my sticker of the word sending. Okay, so here we go. This is super easy to line it up on to, ooh, look, my dot almost escaped. I can line this up right here onto the shadow. Now remember, if we hadn't done it with the adhesive sheet, I would have little glue dots on the back of the word sending. All right, so I'm just laying it down, the E over the E shadow, the N, the D, just kind of placing it and sticking it down as I go. The I, whoa, the N, all right, sticking as I go. I'm going to push this up just a little bit. There we go. And the G, and I'm going to bring this loop down, line it up a little bit better. There we go. Okay, there I have a darling focal image die cut that was actually quite easy. I know there were a couple steps, but it was quite easy. Let's put that eye dot on the eye in place. Now, there is sticker paper on the back of that, but that's going to be really hard to manage to flip it over, peel it off. You get what I'm saying. So instead, I am going to use the tiniest, get my glue started here, the tiniest dot of glue known to mankind. On my cardstock. And then I'm going to move this dot over and glue the dot into place. See, it needs the dot. Otherwise your eye is going to look incomplete. All right, so there we've got that. I'm going to use the cap of this just to press it down. And now we can continue. Now you know how I got that piece. And let's go back to the beginning of the card. Okay. I have a card base that measures 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches. And I have scored it at 4 1/4 down the center. So this is our card base, and this is our new color. It's a true pink. It's a pale pink, but I'm very happy with it. We had a couple of other light pink options that I did not feel were true pink. So I'm really liking this color a ton. We're going to use the ink pad also. It looks really pretty, coordinates nicely with fresh freesia. That's what I've got here. All right, here's our card base. Then I have a piece of fresh freesia that measures 4 1/4. I'm just double checking here. 4 1/4 by 3 1/4. I have a piece of white cardstock, just a little bit smaller. This measures 3 by 4. You can see how that's going to fit onto that. I have a piece of designer series paper that I have cut 4 inches by 3 inches. So we're going to use this. Then I have a scrap of white, and I have, this piece, I have it sitting here, but we already cut it out. This was for our shadow, okay? So we've actually already used this piece. And then of course there was that adhesive backed piece that we used to cut the word sending out of, and we've already done that as well. All right, and then I have 4 small strips of coordinating DSP. They should coordinate with this, but perhaps be a different pattern. And these measure 4 inches long, and they are 7/8 of an inch wide. I have 4 of those. All right, now we're going to do a little bit of magic with our paper trimmer. So I'm going to put that here on the desktop where hopefully you can watch how I'm going to do this. Now, this is in order to create the cuts so that our card with this little panel here, we want to make the cuts so that we have the first flip up part. All right, so we're going to make those cuts into our card base. So what I'm starting with is our card base. I'm going to put it in this direction. I'm going to cut here and I'm going to cut here. All right, so I'm going to open the cutting arm of my paper trimmer. Now what I want you to notice, almost all of the time I use the measurements over here to the left side of the little cutting groove. In this instance, I'm actually going to use the measurements on this side. So I am going to come over 1 1/8 inch, again, to the right side of this little cutting groove. So I'm going to go to 1 1/8. Now, the measurement I'm giving you is not super, I mean, you don't have to always do it with this size. It's the size I'm using, but this little piece could be 1 inch wide or 1 1/4. For my design, I chose 1 1/8. So my right side is lined up at the 1 1/8. Now I'm going to take my cutting blade, which is the darker of the two, and I'm going to cut, making a slit down the paper. Now I want to stop at the 4 1/4 mark, which happens to be, remember, where we put that fold. Now, one thing that makes this so easy is there is a little groove on this side of my cutting blade and this side, so that as I approach the place that I want to stop, right there at the 4 1/4, right there, my groove is now lined up with that score line, and I know to stop. So I can lift this and you can see that my cut exactly stops right at the score line. Okay, now watch this. Pancake, flip it, and we're going to do the same thing. Put that right edge at 1 1/8, and we're going to cut down to the 4 1/4 inch mark, which is the same spot as our score line that's folding our paper. And I can use the little groove on the side of the blade. It is now lined up with my score line, with my fold, and I know to stop. And again, I have that perfect little flap that stops. All right, not hard. Once you know how to do it, you've got it down. We're done with that part. All right, at this point, we've done a couple, we've tackled a couple of the hard steps. So let's do an easy step and attach all of these little pieces of designer series paper. So just using my liquid glue, okay, we're going to do this 4 times. So the first 2 go onto the front of the card on the little flaps that we just created. There's 1. And 2. The other 2 are going to go on the inside of the card, but in basically the same spot, here and here. Now, for those of you who attended Stamp Club in May and you made this project, you remember the challenge? I challenged you to go home and make this card again, use the same design with the panel that flips up, the first panel, the second panel that flips up, but use your own stamps, use your own designer series paper, like copy the card design, but show me what you come up with your own stamps and paper. So I can't wait to see when you start posting your creations. One of my favorite things is when I share a project idea with you and then you go home and make 1 or 2 or more. I love it. Okay, there we've got our designer series paper in the 4 spots. Okay, now this piece is actually going to get some stamping on it, so we will do that, and then it's going to get attached to this layer. So we've got that. This one goes on the front, so let's just keep gluing. We're kind of on a roll here. If you are grabbing for your Stampin' Seal, that's just fine too. I happen to be using my liquid glue today. And for this part, I'm going to just kind of center it in this area. So I'm looking at the side borders, the bottom and the top, and just putting this piece of designer series paper right in the center of that panel, okay? Like so. All right, hopefully you're with me. Here is the front if it was closed. This is going to be the first part that flips up once we attach our panel, and then this part flips up. Let's create this. All right, so I have that piece of plain basic white cardstock, and we're going to do a little bit of stamping. I am using soft seafoam as my green, and I'm using stamps also the dies that coordinate from the Sending Smiles stamp set. Now, this was around in last year's catalog, which is actually when I purchased it, and it sat on my shelf for a little while, but I have recently pulled this out and started using it, and I love it, especially for this look. Isn't that fantastic? Okay, so here, this is where the stamps are coming from. All right, so I have one of the two, well, there's actually three kind of stem looking pieces. So this is one of the larger ones, and I'm going to put it kind of over here. I think that's a little, you know what? I'm looking at it, my flower is gonna hang off the edge. Let's just flip it and start over. Wait, I've got some adhesive that got stuck to this. Let's clean this up. I'm just using an adhesive remover. If you don't have one of these, you can look in the description box below. I have a shopping link for one of these. Okay, now I'm gonna put that stem on there over again. I need it to be a little bit more upright, maybe like that. I think that's gonna work better. All right, and then I'm also going to use, there's another stem, this one, and I'll put that one over here. The leaves are gonna kind of crisscross, that doesn't bother me at all. Okay, there we have that. All right, with, where is it? Here, with Bubble Bath ink, I'm going to add my first two flowers. So I'm gonna put one here and one over here. All right, and then I'm gonna switch colors and I'm gonna go to Fresh Freesia. And with Fresh Freesia, I will do this little flower petal, kind of like that. And then I'm gonna throw in a little bit of Flirty Flamingo, which might give you pause because it's kind of an orangey, bright pink. I don't know. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna stamp it off. So let me get a scratch paper here. I'm gonna pick up, this is just for the center of the flower. So I'm gonna pick up my ink, stamp it off. See, because that's kind of dark for what I've got going on here. But now that it's lighter, it's gonna look really cute. All right, there we go. It's almost, I mean, it's kind of close to Bubble Bath, but it does have a little bit of orange in it. All right, there's our flowers, and let's add some words. So back to Soft Sea Foam, and I chose Love and Big Hugs. All right, now I'm going to test something here. You see, so far I've been stamping with my photopolymer stamps, and I have not been using a Stampin' Pierce mat underneath. The images look fine. I'm not too worried about it, but sometimes with words, they don't come out as good. So that doesn't look too bad. I'm going to bring in my mat and then stamp my words, just to try to ensure that I get a nice clean image like I want. The first time. I kind of got to get in the view here so I can see what I'm doing. Hopefully I didn't block your view. And there we have Love and Big Hugs. See, I think it's nice and crisp that way. I'm not sure if it would have been as good without my Stampin' mat. Okay. The other thing that I did, and I did it ahead of time because I knew that this was going to take quite a bit of time in this tutorial, is I took my scrap and I stamped one of these, and I stamped two flowers. And then I used the dies to cut those out. All right, do you see that? So this was a scrap, stamp one leaf, stamp two flowers, cut those out, and now I have my pieces. And you didn't have to wait for me to die cut those. All right, this piece is ready to go. And this is going to go onto the fresh freesia layer. Eyeballing your borders all the way around. The liquid glue allows you a little bit of time to slide or wiggle it if it's not quite straight. All right, and this is going on the inside of the card. We can do that next. Okay, and all I'm doing is I'm lining this up between those little slits that are in the front of the card. And push it right up to my fold. I want the bottom to be nice and flush here, so I am pushing this right up to the fold. And this will still fold down over it, as you can see. Okay, there's the inside. Now, let's work on this panel. Then we can do our embellishing and pull all of the pieces together. All right, so what I'm going to do is put some little dots of glue on the back of my stem. And add this to the DSP. I think that's cute with the printed paper behind it. All right, get that down. And then at this point, I'm just going to glue these flowers down flat. You could certainly put Stampin' dimensionals on the back to pop them up, but I feel like the card doesn't need it. There's already a lot of interest going on this card. So I'm just going to add my flowers flat without popping them up. All right, there's that. Let's do a little bit of embellishing and then we're going to work on this front piece, okay? So I do have some basic rhinestone gems or jewels. And I'm going to put, I think we'll add 3. There's 3 sizes, so I'm going to use kind of this medium size. And let's put one here. Here. And here. Just a little pop of bling. All right, now, as I said, this card is not really hard. There's just a lot of steps. And now we do need to do another step, and that is to create this top part that is going to be held together with a panel. Now, I'm using a piece of acetate, this clear type of paper. It's not paper. This is going to go here. You could make the same card and this piece could be just a piece of cardstock. It doesn't really matter, but I really liked on this card that it's clear so the words look like they're floating. And so that's why I chose it. So my piece of acetate is 1 inch wide by 5.5. The reason it's 5.5 is you really want it to span all the way from one edge of the card to the other. So this is what's going to happen. The first thing I'm going to do is attach my words to this piece. I'm going to put it on this scrap so you can see it a little bit better. I don't know, on the black it might disappear. So I'm going to take my words and just get some glue dots. That's what we need. A couple of glue dots. All right, 3 is going to hold it just fine. So I'm going to put 1 glue dot behind the S. one behind the D, and one on the back of the G. All right, so there's my glue dots. And this is going to go over here to the edge of my acetate sheet. I want to reposition that a little bit. There we go. All right, so now we've got that piece. That's ready to go. So the next thing is to continue using glue dots. Now I want a glue dot right back here, and I'm going to hide it right behind that S. And the glue dots don't want to stick as quickly or as easily to the acetate as they do to cardstock, so you kind of have to get it to squish on there. All right, so now it's here on the back of my acetate. And then I'm also going to put one on this far end, pretty much centered between the top and the bottom. All right, with your card laid down nice and flat, you can lay your acetate sheet. I'm about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch above the bottom of the card, and I'm sticking that glue dot that's under the S. I'm sticking that one down, and then just basically letting this lie down. So my acetate sheet goes edge to edge like that. Now you can see we only added it here and here because we want to keep this free and able to open like so. And then what I'm going to do is where this little glue dot is, and you can kind of see it, we're going to attach our bow, and that will camouflage our glue dot. Now I'm going to tie this in a knot instead of a bow. It's just a short piece. This is fresh freesia ribbon. It's only about 4 inches, which is plenty if you're only doing a knot. We're actually still going to trim it down once the knot is made. All right, a glue dot on the back of my knot. And you can see how I'm going to put this over here just to kind of camouflage that glue dot. It could have been over a little bit, maybe ideally, but it's fine. Then I can cinch up my knot and trim my edges. Like so. And we have this cute card with a panel that flips up, a second panel that flips up, and then the inside of the card. I'm just in love with this card design. I hope you loved it too. I cannot wait to see what you might create with a little bit of today's inspiration. Please do leave me a comment. Let me know what your favorite part of this card was. Let me know if you're a first-time watcher, and if you are, welcome. Let me know if you're a return viewer. I thank you so much for those who watch faithfully. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please consider subscribing and also hit the notification bell. That way, each time I put up a new video here on YouTube, you will get a notice. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy stamping!